Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Old Time Rock and Roll. I'm your host, David Tear, where I've been featuring my personal top 3,000 songs of the rock era from 1954 to 1999. And today I'm up to song number 2572, which is just a couple days late for St. Patrick's Day, for those of you who celebrate it. And the song I'm featuring today is The Unicorn by the Irish Rovers. This was a hit in 1968 for them. It went to number seven, and it was released on their album called The Unicorn, which came out the previous year, 1967. Here's a picture of the Irish Rovers early on. I'll get into them in a minute, but first I want to talk about the song The Unicorn. It was written by a very famous celebrity. He was an author, a songwriter, singer, and a musician, and a cartoonist. His name was Shel Silverstein. Here's a picture of him here. It was written in 1962, I guess, as a children's song. And he was famous not just for writing songs, but he was also famous for writing children's books. And I think his most famous book was this one called The Giving Tree. I read this as a kid, and I remember I went into a bookstore when I was about 9 years old. I think my sister was eight; she was a year and a half younger than me. We were living in San Francisco at the time, and we were touring downtown San Francisco, and we went to this bookstore, and my sister found this book and read it with me, and it was so sad that she was crying her eyes off. She was so sad. We didn't even make it all the way through the book. I mean, it's a pretty horrible book, in my opinion. I mean, it's about a boy who finds this tree that, and grows apples, and then the kid grows up, and then he picks all the apples off the tree, and the tree just keeps giving him everything he wants his whole life. Like, first he gives him all the apples he needs, and then, when he's older, he needs the branches to build a house, and he cuts down all the branches of the tree. The tree's still happy to do all this for him, and then when he's an older man, he needs to he needs to make a boat, so he cuts the whole trunk of the tree down and make a boat. Tree's a little stump, and he's still happy. And then finally, when he was a really old man, he kind of, towards the end of his life, he just sits on the stump, and Tree's happy doing all this shit for this kid who, I mean, it's a pretty terrible story. I didn't realize how horrible it was when I first read it. It has a terrible message. They should have called this song "The Taking Boy," because I think it kind of shows what's wrong with our society. I don't want to go into this in too much detail, but a friend of mine explained all this to me a few years ago, and I think there was a rewrite of this story recently where the boy had to give back to the tree in various ways. So it doesn't have a very good message, I think. Anyway, I got really sidetracked with this story, but I want to talk about the unicorn, the song "The Unicorn." So I guess I'll go back to the picture of this. Maybe I should go to this picture. So I think you guys all know what unicorns are. I mean, they're mythical, creatures. I guess they're basically horses with a big, spiral horn on the top of their head, and they've been featured in a lot of fairy tales, a lot of children's stories, and I don't think there's really anything special about unicorns other than they have this spiral horn on their head. I don't think they have any magical powers or anything. But the story, I guess, that Shel Silverstein wrote about this unicorn, I don't know if he wrote it as a poem or wrote it as a song, but it's basically, that in the Bible, I guess, before Noah came out, there were all these animals, all the animals we have today. I guess God created them all. I don't believe in the story of creation myself. I believe in Darwin's theory of evolution by natural selection. I'm well trained in science, but I don't want to get into that. But anyway, according to Shel Silverstein's story, God also created these unicorns among all the other animals, and I guess it was the creation he was most proud of. It was a lovely animal, lovely, graceful horse with a little spiral horn on its head. But the problem in the story was that when God saw the sinning and needed to flood the earth because there was everybody on earth was evil except for one family. So he commits genocide on the whole rest of the world except for Noah and his family by flooding them all to death. killing all the animals except for two of each species. Once he's planning all that, he gets Nova gather all the animals around. Of course, you all know the story of Nova and the Ark. He gathers two of, one male and one female of every species on Earth and puts them on his ark. But according to this story, he wasn't able to get the unicorns because the unicorns were playing silly games, I guess in the rain. They were having too much fun. And so, Noah had to get the ark all ready, get all the animals in because otherwise, they would have all died. The water would have gotten in the ark. So they had to leave out the unicorns. So the unicorns, according to this story, were the only animals that didn't make it into Noah's ark. And the last line, that's why you never seen a unicorn to this very day. It's a catchy song. I like it. The Irish Rovers, they sang it with, pleasing Irish accent, and they made a little cute little Irish folk song out of it. I was gonna do this to karaoke, but unfortunately I can't do an Irish accent. And the other problem is I haven't figured out how to fix the 1 second delay between my karaoke on my computer and what comes out of my microphone. Until I can fix that, I probably shouldn't do any more karaoke. So I'll spare you of my fake Irish accent, as well as probably my bad singing. But anyway, that's the story of the Unicorn by the Irish Rovers. And now I want to talk about the band, the Irish Rovers. Here's a picture of them early on. And it's kind of interesting. They were all Irish. They were all Irish singers, but they were formed in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. They were not from Ireland. They were from Canada. And they got started in 1963, and they're still around today. I guess folk music never dies, and that's a nice thing about being a folk singer. You can stay a famous folk singer until you die. So even though they're all in their 80s probably by now, they're still singing. They still sound good. But I'm just going to go through their hits. Their first hit is the one I'm preaching today, The Unicorn. That went to number 7. They followed that up with Whiskey on a Sunday, or the Puppet Song, which went to 75. And then the Biplane, Evermore, which went to 91. Finally, in 1980, I guess they had a big hiatus of hits for a long time. But the final Billboard Hot 100 hit was in 1980, was called Wasn't That a Party? And at that time, they changed their name to the Rovers. And when it Wasn't That a Party went to number 46. So not a lot of hits for the Irish Rovers. The Unicorn is by far the most well-known of their songs. And I like it. Even though I'm not a mainstream fan of mainstream religion, I don't believe in the Bible, and I certainly don't believe in the story of Noah's Ark or unicorns. I think it's a good, catchy song, and I think it's kind of makes you smile. So anyway, that concludes my feature of the Unicorn by the Irish Rovers. So, oh, and one thing I forgot to mention, another song that Shel Silverstein wrote was a boy named Sue. This is I think the biggest pop hit for Johnny Cash, and this one's coming up much higher on my list, by the way. This is a pretty funny song. I might as well tell you what it's about. It's about this drunk man who has nothing to give his son, and so he gives him except an empty bottle of booze, and he decides to name him Sue because he wants to be tough. So he goes through his whole life, fighting because everybody's picking on him because he has a girl's name. And finally, he meets his dad. He's about ready to kill his dad for giving him this name, but finally they have it out with each other, and then they make up. Yeah, anyway, that's what that song's about. Another kind of crazy story. But anyway, that's enough said. So that completes my feature on the Unicorn by the Irish Rovers. Thank you for watching. Happy St. Patty's Day. May you all have the luck of the Irish. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.